Hey guys, your boy Jehuty here with another Tekken 7 video, and today I'm finally continuing the Tekken 101 series. So if you don't know what that is me taking different terms, different techniques from the world of Tekken and breaking them down into what they are, how you do them, and of course the philosophy of how to use them properly. Today we'll be tackling Korean Backdash, but if there's a specific place you want to skip to, you can find the timestamps in the description. So without further ado, let's get into it. So what is Korean Backdash, or just short KBD? Korean Backdash is an advanced technique used to control the space in the arena, or also primarily used to have opponents' attacks whiff and you punishing them off of those whiffs, possibly even launch punishing them. Now this is an advanced technique, but what you're actually seeing are generic backdashes being cancelled and linked to one another. With this, you skip the recovery animation of your regular backdashes and can move backwards much quicker. Anyway, there'll be more on that in the how to do the Korean Backdash part. How do we do Korean Backdash, or better said, how do we effectively learn how to Korean Backdash? First things first, go into practice mode, select an infinite stage, and I recommend using Brian. It's going to be obvious later on why I'm recommending Brian. And the input for the Korean Backdash is back, down, back, neutral, back. And depending on how many backdashes you want to add after that, you just add additional inputs of down, back, neutral, back. Now many people will tell you to focus on this whole input and practice it till you get it down, but we're going to break it down into parts. So for starters, I want you to forget about the back input for now, and we're just going to focus on doing single down, back, neutral, back inputs. Nothing else, just those for now. Upon successfully inputting this, what you'll see is that Brian will duck, and immediately whilst rising he'll do a backdash, and this will be your visual cue to know that you're doing it right when you're doing it. But most of the times you're going to see a whole bunch of other stuff to know that you're not doing it properly. And there are various reasons for that. You may be trying to input it too quickly, maybe too slowly, so you respect that neutral input, and then sometimes you also try to slide a bit too quick and then you get another animation, a backsway out of that. So just focus on doing those for now, the single down, back, neutral, backs. Once you're comfortable with that, try to take a break, so you do one, then you wait for a second, then you do the next one, and then after that you take a break, you do the next one. Of course, when you're comfortable with that, you try to do the whole process a bit quicker. So actually inputting the down, back, neutral, back a bit quicker. And then you do that same thing again. You just take a break, do one more, followed by another one. And then once you're comfortable with that, you start to group them together. So you start off with two of them, so down, back, neutral, back, into down, back, neutral, back. Once you're comfortable with that, you do three of them. And then once you're comfortable with all of that, you now put the back input beforehand. Remember, this is an advanced technique, so if you're not progressing smoothly, remember to go back to a single, simple down, back, neutral, back, and start the whole process from there again. Remember, do not rush this, take your time, do it at your own pace. The other thing which you're going to notice is that whilst you're practicing your Korean Backdash, you're going to run out of space very early on the screen, even on an infinite stage. So your options are, of course, to run back to your opponent. You can use the restart option to spawn right next to your opponent. You can set your opponent to crouch and follow you. But personally, this is what I recommend. This is what I did. And that is, you can reverse the input of the Korean Backdash. So now instead of inputting back, you're now going to input forward, down, forward, neutral, forward. And what you get out of this is a dash, or better said, the advanced input technique for a dash guard. I'll leave my Tekken 101 dash guard video in the description, so you can check that out as well. And the added benefit of closing the gap with this method is that you're also learning the Korean Backdash on the other side of the screen. So if you're on player 1 side of the screen, you're also learning it for the player 2 side of the screen. And then as an added bonus, which is also a fun fact, is that this input is also the Wavu input for the Mishimas. So you're learning that as well. Now I come to why I want you to use Brian. So there are 3 points why I feel that Brian is a good character to learn the Korean Backdash with, and that is, the first one is he gives you a good visual feedback that you're doing it right. So the general animation, let's say versus another character like Master Raven, gives you a good feedback so that you also get into the rhythm of doing it. And the second point would be that he has a back sway. So if you input quarter circle down back, he'll do this back sway. And what happens whilst you're practicing the Korean Backdash is that sometimes instead of a backdash, he's going to be doing the back sway. And that's going to be a visual indicator for you that you didn't input it properly. But then you'll say that, oh, you know, there are other characters who can do a back sway. But that's where the third point is important, and that is, if you input the reverse of the Korean Backdash, the forward, down, forward, neutral, forward for the dash, Brian also has a quarter circle down forward, a crouch input that may appear when you input the dash wrongly. So that's a visual indicator as well, and that's why I feel that Brian is the best person to learn the Korean Backdash with. So now I finally get to talk about the philosophy of the Korean Backdash, or better said, how to use it effectively. And the first thing I want to mention here is that I see a lot of Korean backdashing just in a straight linear line all the way backwards. And if your opponent picks up that you're trying to whiff out attacks all of the time, all they're going to do is follow you. And when they follow you, you're going to keep backdashing, and before you know it, your back is at the wall, and that advantage you try to carve out for yourself with spacing has now become a disadvantage because your back is at the wall. So keep that in mind. You want to use 2 or 3 backdashes linked together, and of course reposition yourself. And repositioning yourself is now the second point which I want to bring up, and that is when you use the Korean Backdash, you should be looking at the arena and seeing where your opponent stands in relation to the wall, where you stand in the relation to the wall, and of course utilize sidestepping and sidewalking embedded with the Korean Backdash to repositioning yourself. So to practice this, what you should be doing is that you should be doing the Korean Backdash, so you should be inputting back, back, down, back, neutral, back, followed by the input of either up or down to sidestep, and then afterwards immediately inputting the Korean Backdash again, so then the back, back, down, back, neutral, back afterwards. And then of course you can hang as many sidesteps and Korean Backdashes to it as you want. And then you just practice this. So Korean Backdash into sidestep into Korean Backdash so that you get comfortable with that as well. So the last point is to block out of Korean Backdash. So in Tekken, the great thing is you can block out of a backdash, and the same also applies for the Korean Backdash. But because the input is a bit more complex, I see a lot of people still getting clipped by mids, which cover a bit of distance. So to train this, you'd want to select Hwoarang, set him to do 2 moves, the back 3 and the down 4-4. And you want to set the intervals to be short. So your goal here is going to be to go as close to Hwoarang and start backdashing, or better said Korean backdashing, as quickly away from him as possible. Sometimes the attacks will whiff, but in most cases they will actually connect. Your goal here is of course to be doing the Korean Backdash, but your other goal too is to block the back 3 and maybe potentially launch punish it as well. And then your other goal is going to be to outspace the low, the down 4-4. So you want to outspace the first hit and then duck the second one, which is a high, and then also possibly launch punish it if you feel like it. Anyway, that about wraps up the whole Tekken 101 video for Korean Backdash. I hope you liked it, hope it was helpful. Leave a comment in the comment section if you feel like it, leave a like, and of course consider subscribing because that helps me the most. This is your boy Jehuty, and I'm out.